We couldn't cure everybody that we came into contact with, but we could care for everyone.
I have shifted tremendously over this period of time.
So I guess the word for ordaining today is just this sense of onwards.
It's important to teach complex adaptive systems in the course of this program, so people understood that even if they're working just on a one-to-one level, that they are also impacting the system.
So the precepts are your guide. Your heart is your guide. Your work is not only about transforming the suffering of a single individual, but also transforming the institutions that breed suffering. Will you maintain them?
I will.
So I founded Upaya in 1990, so it's 27 years ago. The vision for Upaya was to integrate the contemplative aspects of Buddhism with the socially engaged aspects of Buddhism. And the contemplative aspects of Buddhism, as we practice them here in Upaya, include a number of different dimensions, including work practice, how we use work as a medium for awakening. About 10 years ago, I realized how important it was that we begin to create an educational process for people who want to address the existential and spiritual issues of people in crisis. How chaplaincy was practiced in this country, in some cases, was a little bit narrow. This could be dimensionalized, I thought.
This is specifically a Buddhist chaplaincy training program. So I had to say Buddhist with a big B, and it's kind of underlined.
Creating a training program that had a strong contemplative dimension, a strong ethical dimension, intercultural dimensions, but also recognized that suffering was happening in a social context. That social context meant that chaplains could also be social change agents.
With all Buddhas in the livelihood sphere.
The Buddha taught about, he said, I teach about suffering and the end of suffering. He talked about the four requisites: food, shelter, housing, and medicine. That's part of the Bodhisattva vow. A Bodhisattva vow to save all sentient beings. So first, if they're hungry, you have to feed them. If they're homeless, you have to house them.
The starting point of compassion is something that happens before compassion, which is we recognize the innate solidarity that exists among all things, among us, between us. This is what our silence practice is about. And once we maybe feel that or get a taste of it, then action and compassion naturally arise.
What I've found really moving is recognizing in right or ordinary everyday experience how there's suffering there, but there's also moments to intervene and either completely change someone's day or completely change someone's outlook. And just by the simple act of stopping on the side of the road to help someone or making that extra effort. And it's profound when we choose to be curious about one another. It's where we choose to turn towards service and turn towards one another. It's, to me, that's everything. That's my spiritual practice, and that's why I'm a chaplain.
For me, really resonated was this idea of being a compassionate warrior, to go out into the world and to really shift and make a change. How do we bring our chaplaincy work to the communities who need it the most?
Really considering what's needed, because that connects back to that not knowing and the bearing witness. What's arising? What's needed here?
To all those who have lost their lives or suffered harm, to the victims of war, gun violence, starvation, oppression, and for the peace of the world, for all refugees.
Engaged Buddhism is related to social service. And so my work in the prison system, my work in the Nepal Nomads Clinic, my human rights and justice work, support of the Rohingya in the refugee camps in Kathmandu. This is person-to-person work. But there's another aspect of engaged Buddhism, and this has to do with the transformation of structural violence in our systems, conduces to suffering. Our views around race, ethnicity, age, sexual preference, this whole range of othering and otherness that is so prevalent in our culture, and how do we actually address the systems that promote that kind of suffering?
So the Nomads Clinic, we spent about 5 weeks in rural Nepal on the border with Tibet. We couldn't cure everybody that we came into contact with, but we could care for everyone. And we try to wash away some of the layers of dirt that have accumulated from living in a rural mountain. And so you're there scrubbing. At the same time, you're wanting to connect with a person and not just be a machine. And so you're looking into their eyes and making sure that they feel comfortable and okay. And then I think once our hearts became connected, they would allow me then to do the act of washing their feet. But it took a while to gain that trust before you could just dive in.
Yeah, I love that you talk about invisible kindness, because it's not about being recognized necessarily. It's just about that motivation.
Bringing your practice from the cushion into movement. The first time I came here was 6 years ago, and I came just after graduation, and there was such a good energy here. From that moment on, I decided, okay, I will always come to Upaya when the chaplains are here. You know, we are all driven by engaged work, by social activism, by taking care of people. So we have all the same drive, and that bonds.
I was really looking for a way to bring all the different parts of my life together. And it seemed like my Buddhist practice was something on the side. And I really wanted to figure out a way to integrate it so I felt whole. The practice of chaplaincy might be a path to really help bring that into my center.
I have been aware of the chaplaincy program for a lot of years. I was drawn to it because of the engaged piece, really committing more deeply and more intentionally with the path of service.
Today I feel revealed to go into the world and to really begin and really, stand up in this role and this decision to turn towards suffering.
So having the intention to benefit another, to end suffering, is really important, and to actively cultivate that, to actually make it your default position. It's called universal compassion or unbiased compassion, and it's this compassion which does not actually even require an object, require the perception of suffering. It's that you're at the ready. This is kind of the ground of your being. My vision is everybody should be a chaplain, but this kind of a chaplain, a Upaya kind of a chaplain, because we should all be addressing the spiritual and existential issues that are present in our world.